Well, greetings world and greetings 7-Spot. It's 7-Spot Jim, and you know it's time. It's time again for another virtual and socially distant sevens. And today we have a treat especial for you. As you can see on the screen, we've got an exported African who's going to tell us about his seven, how he built it, and the plans he has got going for it. And before we get into that, I just wanted to explain to you that here in our South Surrey 7-Spot studios, it's a balmy 37 degrees Frankenstein, and on the centipede scale, 3 degrees. But where we're talking to, in Atlanta, Georgia, it is 68 degrees, and because he's an exported African, he will understand that that equates to 20 degrees on the centigrade scale. So I am going to bring in, first off, I would remove that from the screen, and I'm going to say hi to Jonathan Frankel. How are you doing today, Jonathan?
Great, thanks, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing awesome.
Thanks for having us.
And you are doing even more awesome because you've got a terrific, terrific seven, a terrific low cost that you've built. And we were just off air, we were describing, you asked me if I had a seven. I built a seven from a kit, but not from bare bones. So I'm blessed to have you on the show with us today, and I'm very keen to have you tell everybody about the evolution of your seven, because you and I, we both started building our sevens at about the same time. I did in 2005, and you did at about the same time. Just you built from book. So I'm going to take myself out of the picture here, and I'm going to put you in, and I am going to let you go for it. Tell us about your seven.
Okay, perfect. I'll probably turn the camera around since you all probably don't want to see me as much as you want to see the car. Bear with me a second. Essentially, I'll start with why a seven in the beginning. A friend of one of my mom's friends, her husband in South Africa had a Birkin, and he raced it, and it was about as lean and mean as you could get. It was a Ford twin cam. He used exhaust piping for roll cage. It was all about how do you get to the lowest weight to make it happen. And so I always liked that, and I always thought, oh, I want one of these cars. I didn't want a big American iron Cobra at the time. And so I found the book that I think everyone does, and then started going down that path, found the McSorley plans and used those. And so how did it start? Started with, I bought a 94 Miata. The Miata had been wrecked in the back. I pulled the engine, transmission, wiring harness, you name it out. And there were a couple of things that I thought were really important. One thing is I didn't want any hood bulges. I wanted the hood, the nose to fit perfectly. I know there's a couple of engines that stick out, and this one's actually been quite difficult to fit, but that was one of the guiding principles I had. And then I wanted to use custom-made control arms, so no factory arms. And I'll apologize for the garage being dirty. But here you can see Miata uprights, cycle wing type fenders. One thing that I liked in the first revision, you can still see some scar damage from when I had it. But these are trailer fenders. If you're in the US, they're from Northern Tool. And I think they were $24 each. They were steel. And so I took many courses of sandpaper, lots of time and polishing, and you can see that I got them to what was once a solid shine. The car hasn't driven in about a year and a half since been going through a repowering platform.
Yeah, because you were in Miata base there, and now you're moving over to Honda K. Very, very cool. Can you tell us a bit about how you got a different transmission? Did you always have this transmission in the previous car?
Yeah, so great question. No, I didn't. I started with the full Miata drive line, and we can walk through that right now. You can see what pieces are left. Miata had the stock Mazda transmission. But one of the reasons I actually went away from it was I was reading that at high horsepower, people were going through transmissions. So if you look down there, you can actually see, and I'll lift the car up in a minute, a gear-track transmission from a BMW, an E30, E30 3 Series. And it's good for about 600 or 700 horsepower. And then from there, you can see, sorry, this thing is a little harder to use than I thought. You can see that there's the Mazda Miata rear end in there. So I still kept that. That is probably going to be the next thing to go. I'm not sure at the power level that I'm at if it's going to survive or not, but we'll find that out in the future. And so, yeah. So I guess what Jim was talking about is when I built this car, it was Mazda powered. I wasn't really happy with 140 horsepower. I bought a couple turbochargers. Never really got to installing them because of fitment. Because being a left-hand drive, you've got the steering shaft right there. So I looked for a new engine, and I actually landed on a Chevrolet Ecotec motor out of a Camaro. Bought everything, got ready to swap it, and then pulled the Miata engine, sold it, and dropped the Ecotec in, and it was too big. So having spent time on Miata Turbo, I saw that a lot of people were doing this Honda K swap from K Miata, which consists of an adapter plate that you can see there. So Honda engine married to BMW Getrag transmission. And using that combination, apparently it's bulletproof. The motor spins the right way. You can see that since then I've added a turbocharger. One of the things that I really struggled with on the first build was the headers. And so I didn't want to do that again. And so you can see there's a turbocharger hanging off it. Some of the new skills I've had to learn is like aluminum welding. So the intercooler I made, it's basically filling every millimeter of space that we can get under the nose. Nose fits perfectly. And then there's a radiator from a Honda Civic behind it. Let's see.
That's very cool. Can I ask a dumb question?
Sure.
You've got we had this conversation in text, but you've got the original Miata diff. And how many horsepower are you going to be spooling up with that turbocharger?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So as far as what it's rated to, I think this turbocharger is capable of around 750 to 800 horsepower.
Just about do it.
Yeah, the motor has 2000 cc injectors in it. And I've got some plans to do traction control and launch control.
Okay,
but we'll have to see where and how much of that it can take. I think there's.
Well, that's the question. Do you think that the Miata differential is going to be beefy enough to handle that?
Oh no, I'd put money on it won't. But at this point, I just want to drive the car this summer, and so even if that means detuning it to 200-300 horsepower, I want to get it back on the road and enjoy it a bit more. Remember Absolutely. What I'm spending money on.
It's a wonderful toy, but it's an ongoing game, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of people who've been doing this. So, like, this is years of progress with my dad. He's been with me on this project for years and years, and some of the things that I've realized over time is I actually don't like playing with cars alone. To me, it's almost like a social thing, and so it's been great to have him help build it. Over the weekend, one of the things that I wanted to do, and what you motivated me to do, Jim, is get a little further, and so you can see the exhaust. We tacked it up over the weekend. We had to work out all the radiuses, and he came over and helped. And so things like that to me are.
I'm so
awesome.
Glad I helped.
Yeah.
I got another question because based on on the most recent video on your YouTube channel, which is exported African. For everybody's information, please tune in, everyone, because he's got some wonderful stuff. What you've just put up there was a baffling system for the oil pan. Are you going to be, obviously, you're going to be taking that pan and doing some surgery on it, are you?
Yeah, I pulled that off. One of the problems with these K motors is they're really designed for oil to move side to side, so to speak, in this configuration. And one of the problems is when it goes into a rear-wheel drive setup, the oil tends to slosh forward and climb up the timing chain and starve the engine.
Yeah,
So
and
that was one of the baffles.
Yeah, I got a similar situation. I mean, my 7 is bike powered, so the bike pan just doesn't work. So I've got a Koenig a pan with a drag bike swivel pickup, and that does the trick. But essentially, that's what the baffle is for, to keep the oil in the bottom of the pan. So you can you don't get starvation.
Right, and I guess in a couple of minutes we can probably lift the car up if anyone wants to see the bottom. It's not that attractive.
No problem. I've got a question here.
Sure.
If you mentioned Procharger previously, any insights to build with a successful use of one? I have considered Procharger utilization in a Ford Z-Tech.
Yeah, I think the question really comes down to where are you looking to get power-wise? If you're in the 200 to 300 horsepower, that's a great option. If you want insane power, I think some of those will tend to run out of steam around the 300s to 400s. Not saying I need that many horsepower. I think I'm going to get a lesson in what I need versus want. But those were some of the considerations. That and Z-Tech transmission in the US is not a very easy thing to find a rear-wheel drive variant.
Well, that's cool. Well, that solves that problem, that question. Now, this has got nothing to do with your 7, but I remember in conversation and in chats that we've had in the past, you've got a very interesting garage setup. You've got a lift system for your cars.
Yeah, I'll step back and you can see one of the things I'd always wanted was, like, all my cars needed to fit in the garage, and that hasn't obviously happened in many years, but the garage I had was set up in a way that I could quite easily put in a 4-push lift and lift the garage doors. So here you can see the garage doors go pretty much vertically, and then it allows me to lift the car if I want to work on it. And one of the things that's nice as I get older, and I think my dad appreciates it as well, is you can see that the lift is actually elevated right now. So how do we keep it at a point that it's more comfortable to work on? I don't have to bend over. That was one of the least desirable parts or least enjoyable parts when we built the car. Some things that I'll probably call out, because I think these are like lessons I've learned along the way, is I bought this battery from Battery Tender. It's 2.9 pounds, and it was about $100. And it has been amazing. It's super light. It's lithium. So when you think it's dead, you kick it in the teeth, push the button one more time, and it cranks back up. So that's been one of the things that I found from a friend who's into UTVs that's been really a 7 appropriate type of thing.
It's really amazing. Well, we're getting some good feedback. Getting feedback from Tony in Spain, who says Excellent. It's a smart-looking machine.
Thanks,
and the fellow who's asking about the Procharger said yes. He thanks you very much for the answer. So that's great.
Sure.
So you mentioned you're going to show us a different part of.
Yeah, I was going to just basically walk through. Here you can see some of the things. I've went to AN lines on the coolant system. I used to have like cobbled together radiator hoses that I'd go get from the local parts store. I didn't want to do that anymore, so I actually found it was pretty economical to buy a kit on eBay, and you can now see that it ties in fairly well. You can see that most of the parts, you can kind of see it through the redness, but it hooks up easily and effortlessly. And so that just makes it way easier to run coolant lines, less headaches, less coupling things together. Some other things, if we're doing a walk around, you can see the steering. Recently had to do a bit of modification, so it comes down and then it travels under the alternator into the steering rack. Steering rack is a pretty trick piece. It's a Willwood, really an old rack. When I called them, they told me about it. And it's one turn lock to lock. So it is a really fast ratio, which is great.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, the only downside
mine's out of a
is
Hilux truck, and it's I've got a steering wheel that's 7 inches wide to compensate.
oh wow, yeah, it definitely takes some muscle at low speeds to get it moving, but it's great for like on track or at speed. It's very direct, very.
And that's a Willwood rack. They're very cool. I didn't know that.
Yep. And then pedals are Willwood as well. Really cramming them in there. 3 pedals. Typical. If you see it right over there, I've got the brake bias adapter. And then I think I've had a lot of people asking questions about the cage. Cage is built to an SECA spec for super production. It's one of their road racing classes that basically says you can race with GT cars. And so that because of that, I went with the low front hoop just because I can find a good look for the high front hoop as well as the side protection. And so this inspires quite a bit of confidence. Some things that might not be super legal is like hanging the exhaust off of the roll cage, but it's a swing set for a reason. And then when I changed the power plant, obviously with the Miata, all the wiring went with it. And so I went with a Switch Pros unit, which you can see over there. It's a PDM. I'm a big fan of it. Definitely think I should have bought a bigger one, if anything. But it essentially from your phone, you can go in, you can decide what circuits do what. You can make lights flash, you can make them stay on, make them flash 10 times, etc. So that part has been fantastic. The part that I haven't loved as much is it doesn't have inputs, which would be great to trigger some of those relays. So I've still had to run fuses and relays in some situations, but that's kind of one of those live and learn things.
And that's called
a bit
Switch
more of a
Pros?
rat's nest. Sorry, go ahead.
That's called Switch Pros. Is that the name of it?
Yeah, it's called the Switch Pros unit. It's it's basically this unit here, maybe I don't know, 20 centimeters by 10, and it's got a little controller right here.
Oh, that's very cool.
And just a couple small wires, and you can see that I can hit it. You can change the lights. You can hit turn signals. I don't know if the horn works.
Oh, yeah.
No, good. Doesn't. Keeps the dogs quiet. But but you have everything here, right? And it's just a quick and easy thing. Makes the wiring very simple. Another thing that I did that Jim, you'll probably like and maybe be able to relate to. Let's turn this back on and we'll show it. Is I got this thing called a Trail Tech Vapor. This is used on motorcycles, and I think it was about $70 when I bought it. It's been a while, although I still have the plastic on it. It gives you water temperature, it gives you RPM, and it's even got a sensor back on one of the wheels for speed. So in the event, in the event that you don't want to go through the headache of getting a vehicle speed sensor and all those things set up, this was great. And it's got the lights here that will turn on at preset either RPM, giving you a warning.
Is that done off of a magnet on the drive shaft, or on a speed sensor on one of your axles, or how does that work?
Yeah, I've actually got a magnet on one of the hubs in the back.
Okay.
But there are, you could put it on the drive shaft. Only problem there is I haven't got one yet.
Yeah, that's where mine is on the drive shaft. That's the only reason I know that question. Yeah.
But it, for the price, I don't think you can beat it. It's not a stack dash, but it's quick and it's effective and it's priced right.
Well, there you go. You give me a whole bunch of ideas. Both of our vehicles are getting a little dated now, and I've got an older data logger, and I am going to be rewiring because I'm still using the bike loom, believe it or not. And
Right.
So you've filled me with lots of good ideas.
Okay, great. Yeah, some of
Yeah.
the things I've really enjoyed, even though the wiring up here looks like a mess, the looms that go to the back are twisted, which is kind of a a term that you see a lot in motor racing. They're concentric twisted wires, so some moving clockwise, some counterclockwise, and you get really great looms that are really flexible. And so that's definitely been something I've enjoyed, and coupled with, I think part of the experience is also buying the tools. For me it is. And some things, right, like the Honda ECU. This is great. It's got a whole bunch of manual inputs and outputs that I can use. So we'll see where and how those get used. Some of those will be for like ethanol sensors that we may use, things like that. And then if we go to the back, I'll show you the tank and the pump before I lift it up. Here you can obviously see a fuel safe fuel cell. Wanted to make sure that I had something that was rated. And then right now it's just a 440 liter per hour fuel pump. Everything has Deutsch connectors to connect all the harnesses. And probably one of the things I like the most are these tail lights. So I machined these out of aluminum billets many years ago, and they have LEDs in them, but their color change. And so what I can do is by hitting the brakes, they go red, turn signal, they go orange, or reverse, they go white.
It's pretty cool. So do you have a machine shop in your garage as well?
Yeah, the machine shop tends to live in a basement. I've got a Bridgeport mill and a massive
Oh,
Storebro lathe.
oh my God.
Most of the things, like you're probably familiar with, live in the garage, right? So there's another engine into that, a couple of welders. I don't want to make it too much about the tools, although to me that's some of the exciting part. Sorry, this bandsaw is probably one of my favorites. It's a portable bandsaw with a mount. That thing gets used all the time. Great for fab work. And then luckily Stephanie broke a part of a dining set we had, or not a dining set, but a display. And so that became my welding rack as well, which has been great. So try to keep the bare minimum tools in the garage. If it's big fabrication, it tends to go to the garage. It goes to the basement for that. And so I'm going to lift it up. It might be noisy for a second. If it is, I'll just mute. And then I'll give you the walk around the bottom. If there's any questions, I can try to answer those. Hopefully it's not too noisy.
That's not too loud. It sounds great.
Yeah, the wheels, kind of like we were saying, Jim, the wheels are now dated. They were great back in the day. But time has moved on, and they'll probably need a fashion upgrade, which is fine. I'm still on the original set of tires, which really tells you I haven't been driving the car hard enough. One thing that I was really concerned with is the exhaust routing and basically how it lays out. I think that's one of the style things on 7 I was a big fan of. I don't know that I got what I was really looking for there, but I really wanted that. Seems like in the UK they have much bigger silencers than I was able to find. It's either that or the fact that I'm running a 3-inch exhaust pipe makes it look a little more inferior. All right, so here we got enough height that we can go there. And so here you can see a get drag transmission, solid mounted in the back. So yeah, I think I saw a comment that, yeah, that's not going to be fun to drive. I definitely think there's going to be a few days like that. Turbo drain, you can see, and then move the lights. you can see some of the steering. So there's still some welding that needs to be done. And a couple of pipes that are kinked, but nothing too abnormal.
And show me what kind of height are you going to look at under your pan? I mean, that was the question a number of people have asked, not just one individual asked. You know, how low is that going to be?
I don't love the answer to that one. It's going to be sticking down low, I think. If you wanted to be metric, it's probably about 3 inches below the bottom of the frame rail. Or sorry, imperial. So about 10 centimeters. And we'll have to see how that goes. I've got some ideas of the way I built the motor mount. It's quite easy just to jack it up to lift all of this up in the event it needs to. But then I'm going to have a problem with the hood height. And we'll deal with that part next. Kind of a nice way of showing control arms. You can see they're just tubular. Nothing too crazy just because of how the Miata ball joints are set up. Seem to work well. It's minimalist and it's just seamless DOM tubing. I cut this in a long time ago. This is a hole in the drive shaft area. Really the reason for this is it was just getting so much hot air in the car and you'd hear like buffeting on the side panels. So this gives it a place to vent.
Yeah, I've got the same
in
thing.
retrospect. I'd probably, in retrospect, I'd love to just cut the whole tunnel center out because I don't know that I'm gaining enough in terms of aerodynamics. Let's see what else I can show you from here. Maybe I can show you some of those wheel speed sensors. No, not too much to really see on the bottom here. Snake this through. Not pretty lower control arms, I will own that. I will say I did take it and have it aligned on a Hunter alignment machine, and it uses lasers and targets. And when I looked at the answers, and I work out how this camera works again, it was one of the squarest vehicles they had ever seen. So that even surprised me that it was squarer than production cars. So that's been a source of encouragement. I think that's kind of the 360 walk around. I'll bring it back.
Oh, I tell you, you've been, I mean, Jonathan, what can I say? Absolutely fabulous. Thank you very much for sharing. And I mean, we've had a lot of people who are builders, but nobody's actually gone in and shown us literally the how-to and where it came from and where it's going part. This is absolutely fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that I actually find really inspiring about this and a lot of the internet these days is just you don't have to figure everything out on your own anymore. There's a guy in the UK, I believe it's Turbo Lotus. His license plate's just coming up for sale. In fact, it might even be Dave Bind. But I get a lot of inspiration from that, right? Like you go through it and you see that, all right, I'm not the first person, or you do a Google image search that tells you, look, get real. There's no way you're going to fit this turbocharger under the hood.
No.
But here's a way you can do it. And so it's encouraging to see that there's so much is out there.
Yeah, I mean, we can both reflect back to the 2005 era when we were starting to build. I mean, yes, thank God there was the internet, but it was basically go to low-cost USA or low-cost UK, and those are your two options.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm still dreaming of a trip to the UK to go on a parts run. My wife tells me I'm allowed to do it. We'll just see when COVID.
You got a fabulous wife.
Yeah. I'll keep her.
Perfect. Well, Jonathan, I like to keep these things fairly tight, and we're on your data plan, so I wanted to say thank you so much. But this is awesome. Folks, everybody, please, one more time, I'm going to say, please, if you want to follow the blog and you want to find out, how the car is evolving, please go to exportedafrican.com, and please also go to Jonathan's YouTube channel, which is Exported African, all one word. That's the name of the channel, and you'll be following the progress on this. And I'm going to, whenever you do post things up, as much as I can find them, I'm going to help and promote them on 7 Spot as well. So I am going to, I'm just going to say one more time, Jonathan, you're awesome to do this with me. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to say, have yourself a great day. And from all of us here at 7 Spot, we say thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Keep well, everyone.
All right. Cheers for now, and we'll see you at the movies.